record on this. So today we are in chapter 8. So this is the part of Bhakti Yoga. So what is chapter 8? Is Akshara Brahma Yoga, attaining the Supreme. Okay. So it is chapter 8. So we are starting, from chapter 7, we are starting the Bhakti Yoga section, right? So let us pay obeisance to Sri Radha Radha Govinda. So नमो विष्णु पादाय कृष्ण प्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामीते नामने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य तारिणे ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाकशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। श्री चैतन्य मनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति पादान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरु वैष्णवश्चां श्रीरूपं राजतं सहगण रघुनाथ वितं तं सजीवं सदैव सावधूतं परिजन सहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्री राधा कृष्ण पादान् सहगण ललिता श्री विशाखा अन्विष्टांश हे कृष्णा करुणा सिंधो दीनो बंधो जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांता राधा कांता नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरे प्रिये वाञ्छा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिंधु एव च पतितां नां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौरा भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे राम 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 हरे okay, let's start. So let us recap what we did yesterday, the chapter 7. It was the process of Bhakti Yoga. So Krishna was started. So he starts with the glories of knowledge about Krishna. Kanchin Mam Vetti Tattvataha. So he talks about the knowledge of the Lord Krishna energies. So he says to Arjuna, unless you know all this, you will never, this knowledge will help you to come back to him, and you will never better understand. So knowledge of Lord Krishna's energies. And then he says, one who surrenders unto him, unto the Lord Krishna, Mam eva e prapadanti. Prapadanti means surrendering to Krishna. Then I will deliver them from all the sinful reactions and he will come back to me. So the thing is to surrender into Lord Krishna. But then there are 4 kinds of people who do not surrender to Lord Krishna. So we saw the Modas, Naradamas, and the Suram and things. So who do not surrender to the Krishna. Those are the 4 kinds of people. But there are 4 kinds of people who surrender to him. They are the ones who are in distress, who want, desire wealth, and then there are who are inquisitive and one are in knowledge, who want knowledge. So they are the kinds who surrender to him. But there are some who will go to devatas for some material benefits, because they are, as per the Vedic injunctions, Vedas, they go there. But Krishna says even that is not permissible, because at least they'll have some, they'll be worshipping the devatas and he will strengthen their faith, and and they will get some benefits. But only thing they don't know is that these are all temporary, and these benefits are coming through to them indirectly from him. So that they do not understand. So, but anyway, he strengthens their faith so that at least let them worship the devatas. But there are still some people who are impersonalist people. And then he talks about the delusion, how because of moha and maya that they are caught into that and they are not able to understand the Krishna, even though they see the Krishna's energies. And there he says about the Krishna's energies, there he says the whole material world, that you can I am in the taste of the water, When you see the sunlight, it is me, sunlight, sunlight and the moonlight, and Omkara, and then the ability in man. All that is through the Krishna's energies. There is a superior energy and the inferior energy, para and apara. And but people do not understand this. And people who understand and they surrender into him, they go back to. It's only due to Maya and Moha, they are delusion. So Maya is illusion, Moha is attached to this material world. Okay, or detachment. So this is what we saw, and what we are going to see here by the end of the chapter. Krishna mentions about that was the process of bhakti yoga, right? So then in the end, he talks about certain technical words you use, and also at the time of death. People who remember me at the time of death, they'll come back to me. So then this starts with the questions by Arjuna. There are 8 questions by Arjuna, Kim Brahma. So, I mean, because whenever there's a doubt, we should get it cleared. We should not just keep it in our minds, right? So, and Krishna welcomes all the doubts by the Arjuna and doesn't chastise him, and he welcomes that and he clarifies all the doubts. So then there will be 8 questions. In that, he will answer 7 questions immediately. But the 8th question, that is the remembering Krishna at the time of death. So that he elaborates, the whole chapter is about that. Okay, how to remember Krishna at the time of death. So tasmatu sarveshu kaleshu. So he says the people who remember him at the time of death definitely go back to him, who is above. So there are different type of transcendentalists. Some will be doing yoga. They connect through the yoga. That is, they keep meditating on Krishna in their heart. That is Yoga Mishra Bhakti. So they also, how they can come back to him, remember Krishna, that also he's explaining in Yomiti Eksharam Brahma. Then remembering Krishna by pure bhakti, that is by unalloyed devotion. So here he talks about Dukkhalyam Ashashvatam, that is the material world is a place of misery and it is temporary. So our stay here is temporary and it is full of misery. So we need to go back, and that only through unalloyed bhakti. Then he further explains the material world and the spiritual world, the difference, and what is how it is temporary and why it is dukkhalayam. He explains, and how spiritual world is full of bliss. So he is going to explain that. Paras tasmatu bhava mya. So supremacy of pure bhakti in attaining Krishna. So atyati sarvam idam viditva. In fact, in chapter 6, he would have said, in the end, he says, no, the best yogi is one who always remembers me and does devotional service to me. And think so, he is the more dear to me. And here he is establishing the supremacy of the pure bhakti in attaining Krishna. So this is, I mean, the whole thing is that the process of bhakti. And ultimately, what is the goal? It is to go back to the Goloka, isn't it? So, and also we saw, so it starts with Arjuna inquired. Arjuna inquired, "Oh my Lord, O Supreme Person, what is Brahman? What is self? What are the fruitive activities? What is the material manifestation? And what are the demigods? Please explain this to me." So he's talking about what is Brahman, what is self, fruitive activities, karma, what is his material manifestation, material thing, demigods. Please, how does this Lord of sacrifice live in the body, and in which part does he live? Oh Madhusudana, how can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death? Prayana, how they can know him at the death? Why this comes is because in the last 2 verses in the last chapter, Jara Marana Mokshaya Mam Ashrita Yatantiye Te Brahmata Vidhu Krishna Adhyatman Karma Chakila. So Brahma and Adhyatman, then Sadi Bhutas Adi Daivam Mam Sa Adi Yagna Chave Vidhu Prayana Kale Pi Chama Che Vidhu Ripta Chetasa. So these are the words he'll be using in the Asmin. All that is how they can come up. They remember him at the end of the days, who knows all about him, glorifying him, and he's the maintainer, and he's the underlining the demigods, and thinks so they will come back. That's what Krishna has said. So now these terms he wants the more clarification. So what is Brahman? Brahman is nothing but our Jiva, indestructible living entity. Adhyatma is the controller of the body. That is the nature of Jiva, self. Karma is the fruitive activities. That is actions leading to the material world, material body. Adi Bhuta is the material manifestation. That is the material nature. Priti. Then Adi Deva is the supreme demigod, universal form which includes all the demigods. Adi Yajna is the enjoyer of service, Paramatma. And where does he stay? He stays in the heart of all. Where does Adi Yajna reside? It's in the heart of all. How to remember Krishna at the time of death? Practice remembrance throughout the life. That's what he says. So the Supreme Lord said that indestructible, transcendental living entity is called Brahman, and his eternal nature is called the self. Okay. The action pertaining to the development of these material bodies is called karma, the fruitive activities. So we saw this transmigration, how he grows from small baby to the child, grows up, and then it becomes the youth, and then the man, and then the old age, and then so these 4 stages, so that and then transmigrates from one body to another body. That's what. So that is the jiva, and pertaining it is eternal, and the actions that are done by the material body is called the karma, the fruitive activities. Okay, so these are the fruitive activities they do, and so physical nature is known to be endlessly mutable. The universe is the cosmic form of the Supreme Lord. I am that Lord represented as a super soul dwelling in the heart of every embodied being. Okay, so there is always change. There is a changes in the nature. See, as the body keeps changing, our body is not the same. As we grow up, our body from the baby to the youth and then the old age, so we grow. Just like that, there's always change in the natures. Okay, but the whole cosmic one, and he's the Lord, and he's represented as super soul, and he dwells in all the living bodies, all the part of the living entity. He is there as a super soul, as a Paramatma in all of us, in all the living entity. But why this analogy of caterpillar is given is a caterpillar wants to become a butterfly. It always endures. It is working towards that. It will work. It will always be thinking, when I will become a butterfly, when I become a butterfly. It will finally, after eating thing, it becomes a pupa, and then slowly it gets transformed. So the same way we should also be always remembering Krishna, and we should try to go back to him. That is our goal. Like the goal of the caterpillar is to go to become a butterfly. So antakale cha mam eva smaranam mukta kalevaram ya prayate sa mad bhavam yati nasti hara samshayam. So what does he say? Whoever at the time of death quits his body, remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. Samshayam. So there's like a guarantee. He's declaring himself. He says at the time of the body, at the time of death, if they quit his body, remembering me alone, then they will attain my nature. Of this, there's no doubt. So here, whom we see Bhishma Mahajan. He's a thing who's lying on the bed of arrows. And after the war, all the Pandavas will come along with Krishna to see him. Okay. At the time of the thing, so he sees, and at the time of the living thing, so that time Bhishma's desire was to see Krishna before he leaves the body. Okay, so Krishna, knowing that, he comes, and then Yudhishthira Maharaj will be asking him to didn't want to go take the kingdom, but then Bhishma will advise him and console him and tell him why he should be the ruler, and gives him all the advising how to rule. And then he will give a beautiful prayer meditating on Krishna before he leaves his body. In fact, all the sages would have come. You see, Narada, Vedas, all sages will come because they know he's a great Mahajan and then he's leaving his body here. Okay. So, Antekala, and there it says Mat Bhava. It depends upon the Bhava. What mood we have cultivated in our life during our, and the whole life. It doesn't mean that I won't remember Krishna doing nothing, but at the time of death, I'll remember. It's never possible. It's not at all possible. It all depends upon the sadhana, how we have been during our lifetime. Only that will be able to be able to remember him at the time of death. But he says, if you remember me and quit me in remembering me alone, then you will surely attain my nature. There is no doubt at all. There is no doubt, no samshaya. Nasti samshaya. So, anhahani hahani bhutani gacchantya hemalayam seshasastvaram icchanti kim hascharyam ataparam. So, this is a story from the Mahabharata. This is Yudhishthira and all the Pandavas. I don't know if all of you remember. Hundreds and thousands of living entities meet death at every moment. But a foolish living being nonetheless thinks himself deathless and does not prepare for death. This is the most wonderful thing in this world. So here this was a story where all the Pandavas, see, one by one they would have tried to come to drink water in the lake. They'll be so thirsty. But there will be an extra who will prevent them. He says, you answer my questions and then you can drink. But they won't listen. These Brahma brothers, one by one, they won't listen and they will try to drink and then they will fall unconscious. So when Dharmaraj Yudhishthira will come searching for his brothers, he sees them all lying there. So then when he also tries to drink water, then the Yaksha will ask him, what is the most wonderful thing in this world? So then Yudhishthira realizes that is the reason why these brothers are all unconscious. So he answers. There he says, hundreds and thousands of living entities meet death at every moment. But a foolish living being nonetheless thinks himself deathless and does not prepare for death. This is the most wonderful thing in this world. That means we think, we see people dying, but we will forget. We think we are going to live forever. And we will say, why should we think about death? It's very inauspicious and we will only think about living. That is what the mentality of most of us have. If you think of death, means it's inauspicious, but we don't prepare for that at all. That is so this is what Yudhishthira says. So death can come at any time. So why do we say he's 25 years old? That means he's going closer to the death, isn't it? Define all this means you're going closer to death. So that is what it says. And so Krishna says that in this chapter, especially, he's talking mostly on how to remember him at the time of death. That is the Bhakti Ego, and how to attain the Supreme. Yam yam yapi smaranam bhavam taya jati ante kalevaram tam tam evanti kaunteya sada tad bhava bhavitaha. So what does he say here? Whatever state of being one remembers, when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. Okay, yamyameti vasmara. So whatever the state. So here whom do we see? We see the King Bharata. He will be going in search of the deer because he got attached to the deer. And we will be thinking where this deer is gone and his mind must have happened something to him. And that way he'll be thinking and then falls down into a pit and then leaves his body. And while leaving, he'll be still thinking of the deer. So what happens? He becomes, and we had seen this story, when he saves this deer, then he starts looking after it, then he quits his body. Well, so when the next birth, he will become a deer. But only thing is, he was a great personality, and throughout his life, he was doing bhakti, of course. But only at the last stage, when he had gone to the forest and he was supposed to do tapas, at that time he makes a slips and then he gets attached to the deer. So what happens? So in the Krishna's mercy, he remembers his past. So you are always, even if it's a deer, he'll always be in the near the ashram amongst the sages. Then in the next birth, it says in the Bhagavatam that he will become he'll take a human being form, and then Jada Bharata, and then he will leave his body into Krishna. So he could have gone before, but now he had to take 2 more births because of this. So whatever state we have at the time of death, that's what we get. So tasmat, therefore, sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yudaya cha maya arpita mano buddhir mam eva shishai asamshaya. So therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna. At the same time, carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt. So he's been telling throughout without doubt. That is, if you remember him, you will attain me without doubt. Keeps on telling about that. Okay. You should always think of me in the form of Krishna. At the same time, carry out your prescribed duties of fighting. So your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain without doubt. So it's unalloyed devotion you should have. That's what he says. And this is Prahlad Maharaj. You know, he was always on the Smaran, Vishnu Smarana, isn't it? So in the Gurukul also, he'll be teaching all his friends to chant Narayana and be in that, and not to waste time in playing and all that. So so this is what we see here. Okay, so how to remember? So now Krishna is telling us how to remember him, so that if you are all the time thinking of him and still carry out our prescribed duties. He doesn't say don't do your duty. He says wherever you are, you should do your prescribed duties, and then but you should dedicate all the activities, the results of it, to him, and with your mind and intelligence fixed on it. So then you will attain me without doubt. So this is the way you have to remember Krishna. Okay. Then you will be able to remember even at the time of death. So Abhyasa Yoga Yuktena. So Abhyasa Yoga means the practice. Abhyasa Yoga Yuktena Chaitasa Anyanya Gamina Paramam Purusham Divyam Yati Partana Achyut. So you meditates on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path. Partha, he is sure to reach me. So undeviated from the path. That means he's constantly engaged in remembering him. Abhyasa Yoga Yuktena. So he has to remember him all the time. Then only without deviation, then he is sure to reach me. So he's giving us a lot of assurance, and he's actually waiting for us to come back to him. And he's giving it in clear terms. He's not mixing his words, and he's directly telling us how to go back to him and how to remember him. Okay. So this is the story of Ajmila. What happens? He was born in a Brahminical family, but one day when he goes to the forest to collect some grass and flowers for the puja, that time he sees some couple in a loving embrace. So he says, no, I shall just see for a second and things, and he'll come back. But what happens? He'll be still thinking about it. And then he brings the prostitute home. And then afterwards, finally, he'll be in that Maya, and he will even disobey his parents. Parents will leave him. Then his wife will leave him, and he will always be with the thing, loses all the wealth and goes into cheating and all the sinful activities he'll do because to be with the prostitute. Okay, though just for 1 second he saw and he got to think. So finally at the deathbed, he sees a lot of demons coming. That is Yamadutas. When he sees the Yamadutas, he gets scared and he'll utter Narayana. That was the name of his grandson. I'm sorry, his son. though at the age of 80 also he had a small son, so he will be attached to that and he will call out for his son, Narayana. But the minute he calls out Narayana, then Vishnu Dutas come. Okay, so they wouldn't allow the Yamadutas to take the thing. And all this, there'll be a big discussion going between Vishnu Dutas and Yamadutas. There's a beautiful discussion which is there in Bhagavatam. Then finally they say, okay, because he uttered Narayana, the Vishnu Dutas take. But so then he realizes that, and then he leaves the house and then he's been given a second chance. After that, he realizes what the mistake he has done. Then he goes to Haridwar and then he will be doing a lot of penance and all that. And finally, he will go back to Godhead. Okay, then only they'll come. So this is the story. That is, even if you enter the Narayana, then they think he will be given a chance to go back to Krishna. So one should meditate about the Supreme Person as the one who knows everything, as he who is the oldest, who is the controller, who is the smaller than the smallest, who is the maintainer of everything, who is beyond all material conception, who is inconceivable and who is always a person. He is luminous like the sun and being transcendental is beyond this material nature. So we should remember the Supreme Person as the who knows everything. So oldest, smallest. So if you remember them like that, you will be able to go back to him. So this is how we have to meditate on the Krishna, the personal form of Krishna. So Shyama Sundara form. Okay. So this is how Lord Brahma, the Lord Shiva, all of them are meditating on the Narayana, on the Vishnu form. Okay. So Mam Epetyo Punar Janma Dukkhalayam Ashwashatam Na Punvanti Mahatmana Samshiddam Paramam Gatha. After attaining me, the great souls who are yogis in devotion never return to this temporary world, which is full of miseries, because they have attained the highest perfection. So he says the people who meditate like that, they will come back to him. They are the Mahatmanas. Okay, he's defining that. And he's also saying this place is the Dukkhalayam, that is a place of misery. Ashwashatam is a temporary place. We are in a prison house. Like a prison house is you could be in a first class prison or second class, but whatever it is, we are in a prison house. We are in this material world. And it's a temporary for us and full of miseries. What are the miseries? We are in the cycle of birth, death, old age, and diseases. And this we are all the thing. If we die, we'll again, there's a guarantee of a birth. And if you take a born again, then death is always there. It's a guarantee. So this is a place of temporary place and it's full of miseries. So unless we are yogis who are in devotion, that is Mahatmana who are in unalloyed devotion, they will never return to this world. Okay, because they have attained the highest perfection. So, and he says from the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest, from the Brahma Loka to the lowest planet Pataloka, all the places are places of misery. Why misery is, even if you go up to the Swargaloka, then Siddhaloka and to the Brahma Loka, but still after your quota of punya is finished, you have to come back to the earth to take birth again. Because you have from here only you can go back to Krishna. Okay, so not from the thing, but wherever you are in the material, in the highest thing, there always you have to be in Krishna consciousness. Then you can go to higher and higher planets. Otherwise, you will fall down to the earth. Okay, so he says, even if you go to the higher planets, all places are of misery. So, and there is a repeated birth and death takes place. So only when they go to the one who attains to my abode, then Kunti, oh son of Kunti, never takes birth again. So this is how he distinguished. That is, there is another thing, whether you go to the earth or to the something, everything they think you have to come back to the earth. Because all places are not free from, there is a repeated birth and death. Okay, that cycle is always there. Even if you go to Swargaloka or Siddhaloka, you have to come back to think. So you have to be in Krishna consciousness. If you are in Krishna consciousness all the time under devotion, then only then he will go back to his board. And if you go to Krishna Goloka, then you can no need to take birth again. That's what Krishna says. So material world is temporary, whereas spiritual world is eternal and full of bliss. So by human calculation, 1,000 ages taken together is the duration of Brahma's one day. So Brahma's one day is at about thousands of yogas, divyogas. So there, if you calculate, no, it will be some millions of years about the thing. And when Brahma's day is manifest, this multitude of living entities comes into being. At the arrival of the Brahma night, they're all annihilated. So when we say that, we said, no, once you die, you will be, after death, you will transmigrate to another body and again take birth. But when Brahma's day is finished, no, when the end of his day, what it does is all the living entities are unmanifested. They are all annihilated because the whole universe gets annihilated, and all the living entities go into the womb of the Lord Mahavishnu. And then again, when the night is over, and again when the day comes, again and again the day comes, then the whole living entities come back to the universe. And again, when the night falls, they are helplessly dissolved. And these are many, many years. See, one day of Brahma is so many thousands, millions of years. Okay. So this what happens. So there is an annihilation and manifestation and annihilation repeated. So you get that. That's also another time, and you get annihilated, and so you'll be thousands and thousands of births you'll be taking, and you'll be, if you don't take this opportunity of this human body to go back to the Lord, you'll always be entangled into this manifestation and annihilation. Okay, so this is what Krishna says. So there is another nature which is eternal, and it's transcendental to the manifested and unmanifested matter. It is supreme and is never annihilated. So this spiritual world is not like the material world. It is always eternal, full of bliss. And from Brahma Samhita, we know that this whole the palaces and all things are made from touchstone. No, touchstone is like the which if you touch it, even iron becomes gold. Like that, they'll be full of chintamani, and they'll be full of everything is spiritual. The trees are spiritual, the water is spiritual, everything in this birds are spiritual, all are spiritual, and all are transcendental nature. Okay, that is what the spiritual world is, and it's not like the material world. Okay, so, and this is our from Brahma Samhita only they have drawn this picture of this is our Bhuloka, the earth thing. Here we have Garbhodaksh, that is Mahavishnu Tattva, you know, where Mahavishnu, from his pose of his body, all the universes, all these golden balls are all universe. And this is one golden ball within which there we have four-headed Brahma and Garbhodakshana. Then Garbhodakshana Vishnu will enter into all these universes. And so that, see, the matter itself cannot operate, but unless the superior energy comes into, I think that's what we saw in the last chapter. So Garbhodakshana Vishnu will enter into all the universes and in the energies. And then Kshirodakshana Vishnu will enter into all the living entities. And from here, the Brahmaloka, there is Brahma will create all the other planets, the earth planets, Loka, Swargaloka, then Pataloka, and all this. This thing we think. This is, I share this PDF to you all. You can say it properly. So then, here in the spiritual world, people who are the go there, they will have all the different tests. Some will like to go as a cow, some will go, there'll be Surabhi cows who will be all devotional, so trees or birds or thing, or you can go with a Vatsalya Rasa, depends on the whatever you desire, you can go to the Lord, do service in any of the rasas. Here there is a beautiful prayer by King Kulashekara, Mukunda Mala Stotra. So this is what was the apprehension which Arjuna had, you know. He says, suppose at the time of death, I cannot remember you. My body will be in such a state that I cannot remember you. Then what happens at the time of death? So here there's a beautiful prayer by King Kulashekara. He says, "Oh Krishna, please allow my mind to immediately yield to your lotus flower-like feet. Just as the flamingo enters into the labyrinth of lotus flower stems, when at the moment of my last breath, my throat becomes constricted by the action of the bodily humus, air, bile, and phlegm, how will I be able to remember you? Please take me now itself." That's what is the prayer by Kulashekara. He says, please take me now itself when I can still remember you, because at the time of death, my body may not allow me to remember you because of the other conditions in the matter. So this is the beautiful prayer, Mukunda Mala Stotra. So finally, the Krishna concludes, Vedeshu Yagneshu Tapashu Chaiva Daneshu Yet Punya Phalam Pradishtam Atyati Tat Sarvam Idam Viditva Yogi Param Sthanam Upaiti Chat. So what does he say here? A person who accepts the path of devotional service. So devotional is Bhakti Yoga. They were all the time thinking of remembering and working for him. Is not bereft of the results derived from studying the Vedas, because he will get all the understanding from Krishna by his mercy. Then whatever one does by studying Vedas, performing austere sacrifices, no, the yogis take that, no, those are the transcendentalists, giving charity or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. So all that very benefit of that he is not bereft, because he will attain all these benefits. At the end, he will reach the supreme board. Only thing is, path of devotional service is supreme. That's what he concludes. Vedeshu, Yagneshu, Tapashu, Cheva, Daneshu, Yet Punya Phalam Pradishtu. All this he will get, Punya, Yet Ati Sarvam Idam Viditva, Yogi Param Sthanam Upaiti Chait. So, one who accepts this path of devotional service will get all these benefits. You need not sit and do the thing, perform sacrifices, charity, all that will come automatically to him. All that, yeah, just you have to be with devotional service. So then one carry out the orders of brahmachari, householder, vanaprasthas, and whatever we are, whichever we are in, whichever order we have to do our prescribed duties, and then path is laid out in Vedic times. So the prescribed duties are given in the Vedic thing. So we know that. So whichever position we are in, we should just follow our prescribed duties. And Krishna consciousness surpasses all the rituals and orders. So just being in Krishna consciousness will definitely, we will be able to reach the abode, because Krishna's mercy will get. So this is what the chapter is. It's a very short chapter. 8 questions by Arjuna was answered, and Kim Brahma. Then remembering how to remember Krishna at the time of death, Tasmat Sarveshu Kameshu. He says, if anyone remembers me at the time of death, not anybody else, just Krishna at the time of death, then he's sure to go back to him. Okay. And others, there are some transcendentalists who like to do yoga, Mishra, that is, they will be meditating on Krishna, keeping him in his heart, and even that also requires a lot of practice, yoga practice, balena. But in all that, underlining is bhakti, that yoga balena should be there. Then remembering by pure bhakti, unallowed bhakti, you will remember that who does that, who knows that this material world is a dukkhalaya and is temporary, they will try to go take up the pure bhakti. And they also, he explains the difference between the material world and the spiritual world, because spiritual world is full of bliss and all desires are fulfilled. And it's not, actually it's a reflection only. What we are seeing, a shadow of it is what we see in the material world. All the relationships and all the cows and things are all spiritual here, and they're all eternal, and they are in bliss. Whereas material world, you might think you are in a very good position and very comfortable, but still it's a temporary world and it's full of miseries. Okay. And so we need to go think about that and try to go back to the Lord. So supremacy of the pure bhakti in attaining Krishna was established here, saying that by pure bhakti, you will get even the whatever Vedic studying Vedas or this, whatever the punya, you will get it just doing pure bhakti. That is supreme. So we saw the material world is Dukkalaya and how to remember Lord at the time of death. And whether you want to be in a Dukkalaya or Sukkalaya, that's our choice. Whether you want to be in the Maya or to be in Krishna consciousness. And here pure devotion bhakti is being explained. And how to remember him, we got to know. So Prabhupada says, doubts are natural, but certain things can increase our faith. What is that? Knowledge of Krishna. We are coming to know about the Lord little by little and about his Lord. Then the association of the others and experience for ourselves. We should also experience that through chanting. Okay. This is how our doubts can be cleared and increase our faith, Shraddha. Because that starts our devotional service starts with Shraddha. Shraddha, only when faith increases, then we'll be more and more into this devotional service. Okay. So, Vancha Kalpatru Abhyasya Cha, Kripa Sindhu Aviveva Cha, Patitam Nam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavyo Namo Namah Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Chant and be happy. Hare Krishna. And this stop sharing. Stop.